Welcome guys to this petroleum refinery course in which we're going to cover most of the processes and products involved in petroleum refinery. First things first, I'm very happy that you decided to enroll to this course. It's very important if you are either in a petrochemical plant or a petroleum refinery to know the basics on how do we get most of our daily life products from fossil fuels, for instance, crude oils. Now, let me explain you a little bit on how we're going to attack this course. First, we're going to give an overview of the industry. I want you to know why is it so important, what are the typical countries that produce or export crude oils, what do we do with crude oil, what do we distillate it, why do we need such amount of energies, what are the different cuts. And then we get a little bit more technical into the crude oils. We want to know why do we have so much components inside it, how it was made, what type of characterizations can we do, what types of assays can we do on crude oils. Then we get to know a little bit more on the physical and chemical properties of crude oils. Once we checked out crude oils, it's now time to start defining what are products. We start with several cuts. We get to know why do we are interested that much into the cuts that come from the atmospheric unit. What is, for instance, light naphtha? What's the difference between light naphtha and heavy naphtha, maybe? What is kerosene? Why do we use jet fuel? Why are they alike? Maybe you are using the jargon of gas oils. You want to understand what is a gas oil versus a fuel oil. We are going to do that, and we're going to define them by means of physical and chemical properties. Then we're going to get to know more products, let's say intermediates that are in the refinery. Those that you will never see in a final, let's say, market. For instance, vacuum gas oil. Maybe it sounds kind of different for you, but that's very common from the unit VDU, which is the vacuum distillation unit. You get this vacuum gas oil and then you treat it in order to market it, for instance, a fuel oil or final gas oils. After checking out several products, intermediates, raw materials and so on, we've got to cover the final product specification, which is the blended product. For instance, gasoline, you know gasoline is not actually a direct product from the refinery. You've got to add several alkylates, reformates, additives, mix them and treat them in order to get the final specifications. For instance, vapor pressures, densities, viscosities and so on. Also, very important, octane rating. So we're going to be covering a lot of specifications for fuels. For instance, also diesels have the cetane index, smoke points for jet fuels and so on. That will be the part of products, and now that we know crude oils, we know a little bit on the industry, and now we know the products, it's time to attack the process per se. We're going to cover the typical unit operations that you encounter in a refinery. So we start first with CDU and VDU, which are crude distillation units and vacuum distillation units. Those are nothing more than columns or distillation columns that have separate raw or side draws. We are going to take out different cuts. Now that you know cuts, you will be able to understand why we do different cuts in a single column. So we do that for CDU, then we continue with vacuum distillation unit, and then we start analyzing other type of processes. For instance, hydrotreatment, which is nothing more than removing sulfur, nitrogen and oxygen, which is very, let's say, not convenient for our process operation. After hydrotreatment, we continue with all the other processes. For instance, polymerization. How do we get polymer gasoline? We get to know alkylation. Why do we need alkylates, or the so-called alkylate? We're going to get also to the catalytic reforming area. And catalytic reforming is very important to understand why is it important, the catalyst in this reforming, and why do we need to reform the heavy naphtha. Then we continue with other units, for instance, naphtha treatment. We continue with the jet fuels. Why jet fuel is a very interesting fuel. It's one of the most direct fuels from the distillation unit. We also get to know more on the FCC, the so-called fluid catalytic cracker. Why is it so powerful, let's say? I love that unit because you get something of no value almost, and then you get plenty cuts. So that's also awesome. Then we get to the residue treatment. Eventually you're getting heavier, more viscous, more tar-like material, and you want to treat it in order to at least save more percentage and convert it to gasolines. We're going to cover asphalt units, we're going to cover vacuum operations, we're going to cover visc braking, and so on. So those are some of the main processes. Of course, we're going to cover what are the typical catalysts, what are the typical conditions, for instance, temperature, pressure, why do we recycle sometimes, why do we need to add some hydrogen makeover, how do we stabilize products, and so on. And now guys, it's time to start with the course, so I'll see you in the next lecture.